Man, I don't know about you guys, but it feels like every single day there's something new happening around the Chicago Bears right now. And honestly, that's exactly what makes this offseason so fascinating. We're sitting here watching a team that believes it can compete at a high level, a fan base that's starving for sustained success, and a front office that suddenly has some really difficult decisions to make. And today, Bears fans, we've got not one but two major stories to talk about. The first one involves a player that a lot of people inside this fan base have grown attached to over the last few years. A guy who wasn't supposed to make it this far. A guy who earned respect every time he stepped on the field, and now there are real questions about whether his future is actually in Chicago. Then there's the second story, and honestly, this one could have even bigger implications for the future of the roster. Because there's growing chatter about a possible move involving a longtime Bears player, and the kind of compensation being discussed might force the front office to seriously think about whether keeping him is really the best option moving forward. And when you put these two stories together, it starts painting a bigger picture about where this franchise is headed. Are the Bears fully committed to building for a Super Bowl run right now? Are they thinking long-term? Or are they trying to balance both at the same time? That's what makes today's discussion so interesting, because these aren't just random offseason rumors. These are the kinds of decisions that can quietly shape the depth chart, the locker room, and even the future of this team over the next few seasons. So stick with me, because there's a lot to unpack today, and I think some Bears fans are going to have very strong opinions once they hear all the details. And real quick before we jump in, if you're enjoying the content, hit that like button and subscribe to Bears News Daily. My name's Andrew, and this channel is still brand new. We're trying to reach our first 100 subscribers. And if you're a real Bears fan who wants to be part of this community from the very beginning, I'd love to have you here with us. Now, let's get into these two stories because things are getting really interesting in Chicago. Let's start with Tyson Bagent, because this is one of those situations where the football side of the decision and the emotional side of the decision don't necessarily match. According to Bleacher Report analyst Mo Moton, Tyson Bagent was recently ranked as the 8th most valuable backup quarterback in the NFL from a trade perspective. And when Moton estimated what the Bears could realistically get in return for Bagent, the answer was a 2027 6th-round pick. A 6th-round pick. And honestly, Bears fans, that's where this conversation gets really interesting. Because we've heard for months that teams have shown interest in Bagent. In fact, Bears general manager Ryan Poles openly admitted that Chicago has received trade inquiries. Poles talked about how difficult the situation is because of how much respect the organization has for Bagent. He said that head coach Ben Johnson loves Tyson Bagent, that he personally values him, and that the locker room thinks highly of him as well. But Poles also acknowledged something important. He understands that at some point, Bagent may deserve an opportunity somewhere else where he can compete for a larger role. Ben Johnson echoed similar feelings. Johnson said he loves Tyson Bagent, cares deeply about him as a person, and believes he's a hell of a football player. He even admitted that part of him wants to see Bagent eventually get his own opportunity to prove what he can do. And honestly, hearing both Poles and Johnson talk about him like that tells you everything you need to know about how respected Bagent is inside Halas Hall. This isn't some quarterback they're trying to get rid of. This is a player they genuinely believe in. The problem is simple. His trade value just isn't very high right now. And when you look at his NFL resume, you can understand why. Bagent came into the league out of Shepherd University without the hype, without the draft status, and without many people believing he could stick around. Yet, when the Bears needed him during his rookie season, he stepped in and handled himself far better than most undrafted rookie quarterbacks ever do. Across his starts, Bagent completed 65.7% of his passes, threw for 859 yards, recorded 3 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, and helped the Bears go 2-2. Now, are those elite numbers? No. But considering the circumstances, they were incredibly respectable. He looked poised, he looked comfortable, and most importantly, he looked like he belonged on an NFL field. Since then, though, opportunities have been limited. Over the last 2 seasons, Bagent has appeared in 7 games, but mostly in cleanup situations. He's only thrown 6 total passes during that span. That's why his trade value has basically stalled. And here's where I stand as a Bears fan. If someone offered Chicago a meaningful data pick, I'd understand having the conversation. But for a projected 6th-round pick, I don't think that's enough. Not when this team has legitimate playoff expectations. Not when Caleb Williams is entering a critical stage of his development. And definitely not when Tyson Bagent might be one snap away from being needed. Nobody wants to think about injuries. Hopefully, Caleb Williams plays every single game this season. But the reality is, every contender needs insurance at quarterback. And right now, the Bears have one of the better backup situations in football. There's also another factor people forget. Bagent still has another year remaining on his contract through 2027. That means Chicago doesn't have to rush this decision. If an opportunity comes along where he gets on the field and plays well, his value could actually increase. The only real downside is roster construction. Keeping Bagent means carrying 3 quarterbacks alongside Caleb Williams and veteran Case Keenum that takes away a roster spot elsewhere. But, judging by everything Ryan Poles and Ben Johnson have said publicly, it sounds like they're perfectly willing to pay that price. And honestly, if the return really is only a 6th-round pick, keeping Tyson Bagent feels like the easy decision. Now let's move to the second story, because this one could have much bigger implications for the future of the roster. And that story involves Cole Kmet, a player who has been one of the most reliable and consistent members of the Bears offense for years. Recently, ESPN's Dan Graziano participated in a trade projection exercise involving several NFL players, including Cole Kmet. And while no trade has been proposed by Chicago, the idea is starting to gain traction because of the way the Bears have built their tight end room. According to Graziano, Kmet's estimated value could be equivalent to a 3rd-round pick in 2028. Meanwhile, analysts looking at possible trade partners believe the Cleveland Browns might have exactly the draft capital needed to make something happen. And when you start looking at the details, Bears fans, it's impossible not to notice how much smoke there is around this situation. First, let's talk about why people are even discussing a Kmet trade. This isn't because Kmet suddenly became a bad player. Far from it. Back in 2023, Kmet caught 73 passes for 719 yards and 6 touchdowns. He's been productive through multiple coaching staffs, multiple offensive systems, and multiple eras of Bears football. Players like that don't grow on trees. But the reality is, the roster has changed dramatically. The Bears used the 10th overall pick in the 2025 NFL Draft on Michigan star tight end Colston Loveland. Then this past draft, they selected Stanford tight end Sam Roush with the 69th overall pick. Suddenly, what used to be a position of stability has become one of the deepest groups on the roster. Then there's the contract situation. Kmet no longer has guaranteed money remaining on his deal. And while the Bears restructured his contract earlier this offseason to create cap flexibility, his cap hit is expected to rise above $15 million in 2020. That's a significant number, especially if the Bears believe Colston Loveland is the future centerpiece of the position. From Cleveland's perspective, the fit actually makes sense. The Browns currently have Harold Fannin Jr. as their primary tight end. Behind him are rookies Joe Royer and Carson Ryan. If Cleveland wants a proven veteran presence, Kmet would immediately become one of the most reliable options available. The financial side works too. According to the report, Chicago has already paid $10 million of Kmet's 2026 salary. If Cleveland acquired him this summer, the Browns would only be responsible for approximately $2.35 million. That's an incredibly affordable number for a player with Kmet's experience and production. The Browns also have the draft assets. They own multiple 4th-round picks in the 2027 draft, including 3 selections in that round alone. That's why some analysts believe Cleveland could offer a 4th-round pick and still comfortably address their own needs. And now we get to the big question. Should the Bears actually consider it? Honestly, this is a much tougher decision than the Bagent discussion, because unlike Bagent, Cole Kmet isn't simply a depth piece. He's a proven starter, he's a respected leader, and he's a player who's been through some very difficult years with this franchise. At the same time, if the organization truly believes Colston Loveland is the future, and if Sam Roush develops quickly, then Ryan Poles may eventually decide that reallocating resources elsewhere makes more sense. That's why this story is worth watching. Not because a trade is guaranteed, not because negotiations are happening, but because for the first time, there are legitimate football reasons why people around the league can see a path where Cole Kmet isn't a Bear forever. And that's something I never thought we'd be seriously discussing a couple of years ago. When you look at both stories together, they reveal something important about where this franchise is right now. Ryan Poles and Ben Johnson aren't just trying to build a good roster. They're trying to build the deepest, most complete roster possible around Caleb Williams. Every roster spot matters. Every draft pick matters. Every contract matters. And whether we're talking about Tyson Bagent or Cole Kmet, these decisions are all connected to one goal: winning championships. As Bears fans, that's what we've been waiting for. We've waited through rebuilds, we've waited through coaching changes, we've waited through quarterback uncertainty. Now the expectations are finally different. Now this team is expected to compete. That's why every move feels bigger than it used to. Personally, I think Tyson Bagent stays put unless someone dramatically increases the offer. And with Cole Kmet, I think the Bears would need a very strong package before seriously considering moving a player who has meant so much to this organization. But that's just my take. What do you guys think? Would you trade Tyson Bagent for a 6th-round pick? Would you move Cole Kmet if Cleveland offered a... Let me know down in the comments, because I really want to hear where Bears fans stand on both situations. And if you enjoyed today's update, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to Bears News Daily. We're still a brand new channel trying to reach our first 100 subscribers. And if you believe this team is finally headed in the right direction, I'd love for you to be part of the community from the very beginning. As always, thanks for watching, and bear down.